Here is the uncomfortable truth this list is built around. Most people buying TAG Heuer are buying the right brand for entirely the wrong reasons. They see the racing aesthetic, the carbon fiber accents, the Formula One partnership, and they buy the lifestyle. But the collectors who really understand this brand are buying something else entirely. They are buying access to a chronograph heritage that runs directly through Le Mans, through the wrists of Steve McQueen, and through a movement architecture that rewrote what a Swiss chronograph could be in 1969. Today, we are ranking the 10 best TAG Heuer watches available right now, from the entry point that over-delivers for its price to the number one that did not just make history. It is history. Let's go. Number 10. TAG Heuer. Formula One Quartz. Every list needs an honest entry point, and the TAG Heuer Formula One Quartz is exactly that. No apologies, no qualifications, and no pretending it is something it is not. This is a quartz-powered sport watch built for daily use, priced at the threshold where TAG Heuer's design language becomes accessible, and it delivers on that proposition with more competence than most competitors at this price are willing to match. The 41mm stainless steel case is built to take impact. The unidirectional rotating bezel with aluminum insert is functional and tactile. The bracelet sits solidly on the wrist with a deployment clasp that operates without the looseness that plagues lesser watches in this category. Water resistance to 200 meters means you do not think twice about the pool, the shower, or the rain. You just wear it. The quartz movement inside keeps time to a standard that no mechanical watch at this price can honestly challenge. And for a watch that is going to be worn hard, worn often, and worn without anxiety, that reliability matters more than horological romance. The Formula One Quartz is the watch that introduces people to TAG Heuer, and it does so without embarrassing the brand that carries the name. At around $100 to $500, this is the most honest starting point in the collection. Number 9. TAG Heuer Aquaracer 300M. TAG Heuer enters the dive watch conversation, and it does so with the kind of specification and finishing that reminds you this brand spent decades supplying professional instruments before it ever appeared in an advertising campaign. The Aquaracer 300M is a 43mm stainless steel dive watch with 300 meters of water resistance, a unidirectional ceramic bezel with 60-minute graduations, a screw-down crown, and a helium escape valve for saturation diving protocols. These are not marketing specifications. These are ISO 6425 dive watch credentials, the same standard used to certify professional diving instruments for commercial and military applications. The dial is clean and deliberately tool-focused. Large luminescent hour markers, bold hands, and a date window at 3 o'clock that earns its presence without cluttering the layout. The bracelet is solid link with a wet suit extension built into the clasp, because this watch was designed for someone who actually plans to get it underwater, not someone who wants to look like they might. Number 8. TAG Heuer Link. Calibre 5. The Link is the watch on this list that most people forget exists. And that is a genuine oversight, because the Link Calibre 5 represents TAG Heuer doing something most sport watch brands rarely attempt with any conviction: a dress-capable automatic with real architectural personality. The S-shaped link bracelet is the defining feature. Developed by designer Billy Balthazar and introduced in 1987, the integrated bracelet curves along the wrist with a geometry that no other watch in this price category replicates. It is not just different for its own sake. The curve follows the natural arc of the wrist, creating a wearing comfort that straight link bracelets simply cannot achieve. First-time wearers almost always comment on it before they comment on anything else. The 41mm case sits at a comfortable proportion, and the dial, available in silver, black, and blue references, carries the kind of restrained sophistication that works from a boardroom to a restaurant without either environment feeling like a compromise. This is a watch that transitions. Not many sport-adjacent pieces genuinely can. The Calibre 5 automatic inside delivers 38 hours of power reserve with a day-date complication that adds practical value without visual clutter. Number 7. TAG Heuer Formula One Chronograph. The racing DNA that defines TAG Heuer's public identity arrives in its most direct and accessible form. The Formula One chronograph is the watch that most people picture when they think of this brand. And there are good reasons that image has been so persistent. The 43mm case is aggressive in all the right ways. Polished and brushed surface combinations, a tachymeter bezel scale for speed measurement, a bold dial layout with 3 chronograph subdials, and a pusher's architecture that is satisfying to operate. This is a watch that communicates its purpose before you read a single specification. The movement is TAG Heuer's Calibre 16 automatic chronograph, a column wheel-controlled vertical clutch mechanism built on a Swiss lever escapement running at 28,800 vibrations per hour with a 42-hour power reserve. The column wheel operation, visible through the exhibition caseback, gives the chronograph engagement and disengagement a precision and smoothness that distinguishes it from lower-grade cam-operated alternatives. Number 6. TAG Heuer Autavia. TAG Heuer reaches back into its own archive, and what it retrieved deserves more attention than the market currently gives it. The Autavia is one of the brand's oldest and most historically significant names, originally produced from 1933 as an automobile and aviation dashboard timer before transitioning to the wrist in 1962. The modern Autavia revival is a masterclass in how to honor a heritage piece without turning it into a costume. The 42mm case retains the original's clean, round profile. The bidirectional rotating bezel with its distinctive bidirectional click is a direct reference to the original design without becoming a replica exercise. The dial, in white, black, or blue references, carries a vintage character through its typography and register layout that connects the modern piece to its lineage without feeling nostalgic. Number 5. TAG Heuer Monaco Calibre 12. And here, the list makes its first significant turn, because the Monaco is not just a TAG Heuer watch. It is one of the most culturally significant watch designs in the entire history of Swiss watchmaking. And its presence at number 5 on this list is the point where we stop talking about sport watches and start talking about icons. The Monaco was introduced in 1969 as the world's first automatic chronograph with a square case. A design decision so unconventional for its time that it divided the industry and confused the market before Steve McQueen wore it in the 1971 film Le Mans, and ended the argument permanently. That association between object and image is one of the most powerful in all of horological history. The Monaco became the watch because McQueen made it the watch. The Calibre 12 movement that powers this reference is a refined expression of TAG Heuer's automatic chronograph architecture. Column wheel controlled, column wheel operated, 40-hour power reserve, and mounted with the crown on the left side of the case, a specification unique to the Monaco that reinforces the deliberate unconventionality of its design. Number 4. TAG Heuer Aquaracer Professional 300. The Aquaracer returns, but this time elevated into a specification and finishing tier that separates it from its Calibre 5 sibling in ways that collectors notice immediately and casual buyers feel without being able to articulate why. The Aquaracer Professional 300 brings TAG Heuer's most serious dive watch credentials to bear in a 42mm case that manages to be simultaneously more refined and more purposeful than the standard 300mm above it. The ceramic unidirectional bezel in this reference delivers a scratch resistance and color retention that aluminum inserts simply cannot match over years of daily wear. That is not an aesthetic preference. It is a durability specification with real-world consequences for how the watch looks a decade from now. The bracelet on the Professional 300 has been redesigned with a clasp mechanism that adjusts in fine increments for wrist size and comfort, the kind of engineering detail that most brands apply to watches at twice this price. The dial layout has been refined with applied markers that catch light with more dimensionality than the painted alternatives on entry-level dive watches. Number 3. TAG Heuer Carrera Calibre 16, where TAG Heuer stops being a compelling sport watch brand and reveals what it has always been at its best. A chronograph house with a heritage that runs as deep as any in Switzerland. The Carrera was introduced in 1963, named by Jack Heuer after the Carrera Panamericana, one of the most dangerous road races in history, a 3,000-kilometer open road race across Mexico that killed drivers and captured the imagination of an era. Jack Heuer didn't name his watch after a race because it sounded exciting. He named it after a race that demanded the exact kind of legibility, reliability, and split-second precision he was building into the case. The modern Carrera Calibre 16 is a 41mm stainless steel automatic chronograph that maintains every element of that original design DNA. The open dial layout with 3 sub-registers, 30-minute chronograph, 12-hour counter, running seconds, is a lesson in functional elegance. Nothing on this dial is decorative. Every element answers a question you might ask your wrist at speed. Number 2. TAG Heuer. Carrera. Heuer Z02. The Carrera ascends into manufacturer territory, and the distinction between Calibre 16 and Heuer Z02 is not merely technical. It is a statement about what TAG Heuer is willing to build when it decides to build everything itself. The Heuer Z02 is TAG Heuer's in-house automatic chronograph movement, developed entirely within the brand and introduced to demonstrate that TAG Heuer's manufacture capabilities had matured to the point where sourcing the most critical component of its identity, the chronograph movement, from an external supplier was no longer necessary or acceptable. Running at 28,800 vibrations per hour with a column wheel and vertical clutch, the Heuer Z02 delivers a 80-hour power reserve that doubles the Calibre 16's capability and exceeds what many Swiss chronograph manufacturers offer at significantly higher price points. The vertical clutch design eliminates the hand jump on chronograph engagement that plagues traditional horizontal clutch mechanisms. Start the chronograph and the seconds hand moves from 0 without flinching. Number 1. TAG Heuer Monaco. Calibre 11. There is a specific moment in watch history that this watch was part of, and understanding that moment is the only way to understand why the Monaco Calibre 11 is not merely the best TAG Heuer you can buy. It is one of the most historically significant mechanical timepieces produced by any Swiss manufacturer in the last 60 years. In 1969, 3 Swiss watch companies simultaneously released the world's first automatic chronograph movements. Zenith released the El Primero. Breitling and Hamilton co-developed what would become the Calibre 11. And Heuer, partnering with Breitling, Hamilton, and movement maker Buren, released the Calibre 11 inside 2 watches on the same day, the Chronomatic and the Monaco. The race to be first had ended in a 3-way tie, and the watch world has debated the outcome ever since. What is not debatable is this. The Monaco was the watch that made the moment visible. The square case, the left side crown, the blue and white racing livery, the name of a Grand Prix circuit on the dial. The Monaco Calibre 11 was the chronograph that the public actually saw, touched, and wanted. And when Steve McQueen wore it 2 years later, it became permanent.